the one hand side, strengths in research and universities, and on the other side, also strengths fields in industry. So there are double strengths fields. That's why we call this the double strengths field strategy. We are, of course, prepared to share this information with all of the colleagues of the Vanguard Initiative. We are really convinced that this knowledge exchange between all these members here regarding concepts for smart specialization strategies for highly industrialized regions is of great value and also offers great opportunities for all members of the Vanguard Initiative. Thank you very much.
Grazie Mr. Lindorfer. Ora, ultimo ma non ultimo assolutamente, Mr. Butov.
Yes, Excellencies and colleagues, Chairman Minister Melasini, thank you very much for organizing all that for us and being here in Milano with us. North Rhine-Westphalia is honored to participate in the Vanguard Initiative. I want to shortly point out why. The Vanguard Initiative stands for new growth in smart specialization strategies, and that is exactly the way North Rhine-Westphalia wants to strengthen its industry, especially by innovation policy. We distinguished 8 very important markets, our so-called lead markets. On the one hand side, NRW already has strength in these fields, in these markets, and on the other hand side, they are worldwide future markets because they offer solutions for the future demands in the world. It is energy and environment, new materials, mobility and logistics, advanced manufacturing, ICT, and the health sector. We want to focus on these markets in terms of public and private financial promotion, cluster policy, research, and so on. I'm sure that strengthen our industry sector and the support of new technologies are the keys to generate new growth. In these fields, we want to keep on cooperating with the Vanguard regions, and important is always very tangible. That means cooperation between clusters, research facilities, companies, and of course in politics. 5 examples for practical doing. In this sense, so the first, my Minister Dün will join the 5th German-Dutch Economic Panel next week in our state. Second, next week as well, Minister Dün will meet Geert Bourgeois, the Flemish Prime Minister. Third point, within the Vanguard Initiative, we already started the project for a smart specialization platform for advanced manufacturing. Fourth, since several years, our state cooperates with several Vanguard regions and others in the field of chemical industry, the so-called European Chemical Regions Network. We could enlarge it. And fifth, as mentioned before, Flanders, Südholland, and currently North Rhine-Westphalia are currently working on a cross-border mega cluster on bio-based materials. Mr. Berskens and Mr. van der Sande mentioned it before. From all that, and that means all partner regions benefit. And this is the idea of the Vanguard Initiative, and this is why we participate and promote it. Thank you very much.
Grazie, ringrazio veramente tutti i colleghi che hanno anche in maniera molto sintetica estrinsecato il proprio pensiero, che mi permetto di riassumere semplicemente in una frase, cioè con una motivazione comune nel cercare di unire le forze, soprattutto per investire nel futuro dell'Europa, che è il tema proprio della nostra giornata. Visto che siamo leggermente in ritardo, io darei la parola subito al dottor Pettinelli, dalla direzione, il direttore generale dell'industria a livello europeo, della Commissione europea. Prego.
I'm just going to correct, Mr. Pettinelli couldn't be here today. Those are very complicated weeks and very busy weeks in the Commission with the takeover of a new president and a new college. So although Mrs. Drake, who is also a director, will say a few words later when she comes on behalf of the Director General, but I can also already, with a little bit more time, come here and on behalf of the industry services of the European Commission express our support for the Vanguard Initiative. I just want to point out that President Juncker, who just took over the Commission, in his political guidelines, in his 10 political priorities, has mentioned that he wants to develop a more integrated single market in Europe with a solid industrial base. So it's clear that in his priorities and what will be the priorities of the next 5 years of the Commission, the economic integration of Europe, based with an industrial foundation, is and will continue to be there. We also, in our industrial policy communication for an industrial renaissance at the beginning of this year in January, of course we promote the development of industry, but we emphasize also the role of regions in doing this. And so this is why we have been following with a lot of interest, and we have expressed our support to the Vanguard Initiative. We think that it does all of this that I've just said. It integrates the continent. It develops a future-oriented industrial base, and it works, I think, at the appropriate level. Why do we think regions are so important? First of all, because industry today is not about just building a plant or producing a product. This you can do anywhere in the world nowadays. That's not what we think will be competitive in. That's not what will keep industry in industry or anywhere. Industry today, a future-proof industry, something that creates value added and jobs and stays, is an industry that creates solutions, that has creative ideas about commercial applications of inventions of technology. And that you don't do by just building a building and putting a machine inside. You need a whole ecosystem of capabilities and knowledge and infrastructure to produce that. This needs to be what we call a publicly supported or a publicly encouraged bottom-up approach. I think there's a role for regions to provide and invest in the many different layers that are needed, both in training, skills, education, financing, infrastructure. Of course, the national and the European level can play a role. I think at the European level, particularly in what concerns the integration of the different activities and the synergies to be have across Europe, we have a role to play, and we are looking to play that role. And so we are willing to participate in what is quite a complicated exercise. Now, at this moment, we have already reviewed our instruments. We have the European Enterprise Network. We have our clusters policy. All this is being revised and reviewed so that these instruments are more plugged into regional development policies and smart specialization priorities. We are very keen to promote the combination of funding, the synergies of Horizon 2020 and structural funds. We understand there is some way to go to facilitate the access, notably to Horizon 2020 funds, by clusters or SMEs. I think this is an area of work that we need to engage in. So we, at this point, are very actively following this process, giving it the support we can, and accompanying and hoping to evolve an instrument so that the help that we're supposed to give is there. And I think on that, just to encourage you to continue, we are following with curiosity and excitement. I mean, again, and we hope this will be a model for other regions to follow. Of course, where our objective is, we work at the EU scale, so we see you as an example for others, and if the model works, it's something that we definitely would like to see generalized, in which case we obviously would step in more intensely. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for having us. We're very happy to be here, and on that, I think I give I don't want to take your take your job, but I understand that my colleague will now make.
Credo che
i colleghi adesso forse vogliono fare.
Grazie dottoressa. Adesso la parola, visto che è qua presente, poi altri ospiti, altri interventi li avremo da Bruxelles. Ora al dottor Schulze della DG Regional Policy.
Grazie, buongiorno. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting, to this important meeting. Let me first apologize for the absence of Mikel Landa-Basso. As many of you know, he's the head of cabinet of our new Regional and Urban Policy Commissioner, Ms. Kretsu, and in this function, it really seems he's being submerged by a tsunami of activities and high-level meetings. So he really had the intention to come. We had desperately tried to get hold of him yesterday to deliver the message that we have prepared with the cabinet by video, but not even that was possible. There's a lot going on at the moment, so I'm afraid it's me who will deliver that message to you, but it's been well agreed with Mikel, and you have, of course, his full encouragement and support. He's well aware of your achievements and your activities, having been the head of unit, responsible for smart specialization, having been basically together with the unit at the cradle of the Vanguard Initiative, and we have followed this with great pleasure, your involvement within that 1 year. So let me allow to use the kind of statement that we elaborated together as a basis for my comment now. So I want to reassure you that for us as DG Regio, up to the highest level, the Vanguard Regions Initiative is extremely important, and that we extend our full political commitment to these activities. We will continue to support you, also in operational terms. I'll come to that later as well. In terms of this support, we suggested to our commissioner now, there's an opportunity. She's going to speak at the European Innovation Summit on the 17th and 19th of November in the European Parliament, so we suggested that she will mention the Vanguard Initiative as a model for developing and testing these new value chain-based methodologies for better and more strategic interregional cooperation and rollout of these 3 strategies. I personally call this the new Interact, right? We have also launched, we had a discussion yesterday with the Vanguard Regions representatives on how we can contract additional technical support to your activities, particularly the mapping and matching and the kind of managing of the process. So we are in discussions with that, and we will do that. Your initiative is particularly important to us because it proves that smart specialization is not just an academic concept, but that it can be a powerful organizing and coordination principle for future-oriented investments for Europe's industrial development. And let me add personally, that in particular, because I've been very much involved in looking at the operational programs and the smart specialization strategies delivered by all of you, in particular because lots of regions and member states chose to go for rather broad areas of smart specialization, while of course indicating what their specific competitive advantages in these areas are, and where the kind of indicative roadmaps they want to go. I mean, we really insisted in those cases on having a clear a proof of an entrepreneurial discovery process that's taken place. And some of the regions still have to supply this information to us, and there are action plans also for some of the regions to do so. So we find that the Vanguard Region Initiative can also help to narrow these fields down very concretely in terms of looking at concrete value chains and then working towards a common roadmap. So this is a hugely important and crucial aspect now for the further implementation of smart specialization, and we'll make sure that our political level is fully aware of that. And also because we think in general, and it was mentioned already, that Vanguard helps to now develop and test concrete methodologies of coordinating, mapping and matching actors in emerging domains. which is also extremely valuable for regions that are not part of the Vanguard, and that we will see a bit of a model that we can push into many more of these kind of corporations, but then concrete corporations and particular value chains through the Interact programs. In a way, we see this like a sequel to what we have done, what the colleagues in DG Enterprises have done, what the colleagues in DG RTD have done with different initiatives that are now coming together. So for the Regions for Economic Change initiative, the cluster cooperation that funded by DG Enterprise and which is going on now in COSME with the strategic European cluster corporations and the regions of knowledge, of course. So it's really a new model for hands-on policy learning with clear result orientation, leading us to a much more action-oriented approach, having smart specialization as a sort of magnet and a sort of compass for this for the first time. And I think this is really important. So for us, it's also important to stress that the Vanguard is just the tip of the iceberg, and that it's supported by a larger coalition of actors, including networks such as ERIN, based on the kind of 10 years cooperation within ERIN and other networks, that also the initiatives that I just mentioned, and reaching out to more than just a few high-tech regions. That's really, really important also in the discussions we have with the colleagues in the other DGs in the European Commission, that this reaching out takes place, and that in our further efforts now to roll out this kind of Vanguard-type methodologies that you're in the process of developing, that we're reaching out to more regions. So while we congratulate you on your dynamism and what has already been achieved, it's also clear to us that the challenge that we now see lying ahead of you and of us is to be really consistent now in developing these new methodologies and tools and test them and really get to co-investments in pilot facilities and in demonstrators. I mean, that's the ultimate goal that will prove the success if we see these emerging. And so for this, we need, of course, more than just systematic mapping and matching of capabilities and of partners in those smart specialization domains in the related value chains. We need a proper involvement of innovation stakeholders with industry and researchers working together, which basically forms a transnational entrepreneurial discovery process. In this way, we will really be able to mobilize the economic benefits of smart specialization and also enhance those synergies, interlink the ecosystems, and maximize the kind of leverage in the benefits and the impact of our funds. So you see, there's a lot of expectations on your cooperation. And I think the combination of a strong political mandate and will that you've demonstrated, together with clear ideas how to do that, not just staying on the talking level, but really going into the mechanisms of how to instigate this cooperation that will lead to, joint investments. That is something that's extremely valuable, and where we expect a delivery of that in some form or the other, and we are ready to support you further on in this process. Thank you very much.
Ora, grazie, dovremmo cercare di dare, sarebbe l'intervento del dottor Korpakis da Bruxelles, quindi volevo sentire un attimo se i nostri potenti mezzi tecnici ci mettono in contatto con Bruxelles.
Good morning, can you hear me? Can you hear me, or can you see me from Brussels?
Good morning.
Good morning. So, good morning. Thank you, Chair. I already heard my colleagues from DG Enterprise and DG Regio, and first of all, we want to apologize because we are not able to be with you in Milan. But we fully appreciate your efforts, and we also fully appreciate what you have put in your declaration. As you know, our main concern today, as we are implementing the new framework program for research and innovation, Horizon 2020, is how to to improve the quality of research and innovation investment in the member states and regions. And for example, we have, as you remember, last June we have introduced a new communication on research and innovation as sources of renewed growth. We have also worked throughout the last 2 years with our colleagues, especially from DG Regional Policy, for making research and innovation investment, I would say, one of the most important, if not the most important, thematic objective in the new cohesion policy. And all our efforts in underpinning the Smart Specialisation process with our colleagues also in the Joint Research Center in Seville from the Smart Specialisation platform is exactly to raise the quality of interventions for research and innovation in the member states. And we are now almost at the end of the negotiation process, where we have also seen most of the operational programs and the partnership agreements that are being submitted. And as Klaus has already mentioned, we would like also to see more engagement from regions towards a smart specialization process, especially in terms of interregional cooperation, because this is something that we have not seen coming very strong inside the operational programs. So we want really to see more interregional cooperation, and the Vanguard Initiative goes very much into this direction, and we are very pleased about this. So at this stage, we are, I would say, more in an exploratory mood. We would like to continue facilitating the process of a dialogue between the Vanguard Initiative and our thematic areas, because as you know, we host a lot of thematic areas that are very much close to the objectives of the Vanguard Initiative. We see, as Klaus has also mentioned, a strong potential, in particular in undertaking particular demonstration projects, facilitating the process of bringing, for example, first of a kind demonstrators. As you know, Horizon has a lot of potential. We have a lot of calls open, and there will be a lot of opportunities for engaging with the call. So we invite the regions that are leading the process of the Vanguard Initiative to be even more engaged in this process. I also want to stress a particular point that we have been also working very closely, not only with DG Regio, but also with a lot of colleagues across the services of the Commission for more than 10 months last year, and Klaus was also a part of it. We have produced a guide for synergies between Horizon 2020 and the structural funds, but also with other EU-related competitiveness and innovation programs. And I think that the Vanguard Initiative provides also a very important tool for facilitating these synergies, because, as you know, these synergies are at the hands of the national and regional authorities. The Commission can only facilitate this process, and we see this as a real golden opportunity, again, for improving the quality of the investment. So I would like to finish here my presentation, and I would like to wish the best for the Vanguard Initiative.
Thank for your interesting intervention, Mr. Korpakis, but I see that the political message of the Vanguard Initiative, that region, the smart specialization and a cluster-based interregional cooperation are the key to the new industrial growth. And then very, very thank for your personal intervention. Thank. And then Mr. Luc Borga from DG Connect.
He hasn't arrived yet.
Then, okay, to be continued. See you later, Frank. Siamo un attimino in attesa allora di collegarci con Luc Borg. Io darei spazio, se qualcuno dei colleghi o dei tecnici che accompagnano i colleghi sono interessati o hanno riflessioni, domande da porre, pregherei di alzare verticalmente il proprio cavaliere in modo da prenotarci. Direi solo una decina di minuti. Prego. Ci sono interventi? Prego.
Grazie. I want to ask something to Mr. Schulz. In the start of his interaction, he said that we have really to prove that we can do things really in the field, that we can work together, really not only words but doing things. But on the other hand, you said we should involve more regions even than we had today. I thought you were saying that, and I thought we should start now in really implementing, and afterwards we can have other regions. But your body language also already says that I was wrong in what you said.
Now, what I meant is effectively that you should act as a model for other regions. Whether they join your activities or whether they develop their own activities based on the methodologies we're developing and testing now, which are really new and are exciting and are very concrete. I mean, we have done a first step with the kind of peer review exercises in regional policy, which were also unique. Now we have to get a step ahead, and you are pioneering this step.
Io su questo mi permetto di intervenire richiamando anche ciò che stiamo facendo e che si sta facendo rispetto dei progetti pilota, quindi questo è importante, questo è il primo passo, dobbiamo coinvolgere anche altri potenziali attori, ma riguardano questi 3 progetti campi estremamente interessanti sui quali da modello coinvolgere anche tutta un'altra serie di regioni. Altre domande, altri interventi? Prego.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to support my colleague from Landers, a couple of comments. First, if we imagine that these one-card regions would form an EU member state as such, we would be the set of regions which have the highest trade surplus in Europe. We would be the set of regions that would have the highest R&D levels in the European Union. And actually, we are the regions that will actually have as outputs the best and largest set of intelligence machinery, intelligence solutions, and so on. And if you look what actually this network can create to Europe is the new way of doing business in the world, which is very different from the traditional production arena. We product services and products which are so interlinked and need the support of technology, sciences, human sciences, social sciences, and economical sciences. So I truly encourage the Commission to follow very closely and support the way of creating the new business arena we are part of. Thank you.
Grazie. Prego.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in terms of this interregional cooperation and interregional network, we in the north and in Galicia, we are just last Friday where we have the kickoff of the RIS3 cross-border strategy. We believe it's the first one, in Europe. So, well, and this is a major interest for us in terms of North and in Galicia, and we are dealing with the Galicia region in order to invite them to be in the next meeting, as an observer, of course, and we are inviting them to join the Vanguard Initiative. So I think it's a huge step forward in terms of what Mr. Schulz said before, and what the Commission advises to make this initiative a larger one in terms of the European Union. So I think it's an example of what we are doing now in North and in Galicia, a region of Spain, of course, and nowadays we are building the RIS3, the cross-border strategy in terms of smart specialization. So I just want to point out this example of what is nowadays is doing in the EU. Thank you.
Grazie a lei. Se non ci sono altri interventi, mi permettevo un attimino magari di rilanciare un attimino richiamandoci a ciò che andremo a sottoscrivere, no? Con la dichiarazione di Milano, cioè che va un po' diciamo a risottolineare e a confermare anche ciò che c'è stato sottolineato sia dal dottor Schulz che anche da Korpakis rispetto a ciò a richiamare un po' il ruolo delle regioni. Noi ci impegniamo, andiamo a sottoscrivere, a creare proprio, sostenere la creazione di rete interregionali, andare a facilitare tutto ciò che può essere strumento di accesso al finanziamento composito, cioè per i progetti di co-investimento, le nuove modalità di finanziamento e di potenziamento degli investimenti pubblici privati, lavorare concretamente, ciò che noi tutti facciamo nella quotidianità, ma ancora di più sull'attuazione di strategie di specializzazione intelligente, soprattutto contribuire alla strategia europea sui cluster per la nuova crescita, soprattutto mettendo sempre al centro la specializzazione intelligente, e soprattutto diventa fondamentale, l'ho lasciata per ultimo ma non è l'ultimo punto, è sviluppare la nostra iniziativa Vanguard, che veramente è un momento, io lo considero, adesso la mia provenienza molto medica, è proprio un catalizzatore di energia rispetto alla potenzialità per stimolare e sostenere e abbattere alcune determinate barriere culturali e favorire un dialogo strategico tra tutti i nostri membri e la Commissione europea, soprattutto sfruttando e utilizzando, scusate il verbo sfruttare ma è proprio vero, la specializzazione intelligente, tutta con la Smart Strategy. Quindi se ci sono riflessioni in merito un po' a questi 6 punti che noi andremo a sottoscrivere, che ci impegniamo a sottoscrivere nella dichiarazione di Milano, abbiamo ancora qualche minuto. Bene, visto che Mr. Luke Borg non c'è, io chiederei a Richard Taff, che è Director of European Region Research and Innovation Network, se può introdurci qualcosa.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. As a director of ERIN. I was at the November event with when you signed the letter, the first letter, and I was at the press conference and I was with President Chris Peters from Flanders, and I remarked that ERIN started in 2007 as a formal paying network, and we had 15 regions that were signed up for the first year. ERIN now has over 110 regions. So the question that somebody raised of how far can Vanguard go, potentially much further on that level. And already, I should say, congratulations really for being here today and doing an amazing amount of work in the first year. I'd just like to as I am sort of director of ERIN, and most of the members of the Vanguard Initiative are ERIN members, I think this is the fact that we've been able to start this platform of research and innovation platform on regions that are interested in that area over the past 7 years. This has made really this ease of communication, the sharing of information in trust and confidence, which has allowed, I think, the Vanguard Initiative to do so much work in the first year, because so much of the base of what we've been doing, talking about research and innovation and activities, has been already laid down over many, many years. And I think that's very, very important. Also, ERIN has been helpful, I think, by supporting some soft measures to support the Vanguard Initiative. For example, in the RIM, the Regional Innovation Monitor Plus platform, we've actually had 4 workshops on advanced manufacturing this year. The last one was organized by Lombardy and Catalonia, was at the Lombardy office and was looking at advanced manufacturing, efficient and sustainable advanced manufacturing, with many Vanguard Initiative regions there. So we've been helping on that level too. But let me come to how has this started. I mean, what we should say is that the Vanguard Initiative is not an accident that happened. It was actually coming together of many, many areas. The first point was the regional dimension. We've been talking about in ERIN the regional dimension since 2001 and how important it is for innovation and research. That message has been clearly now taken up by the Commission. It's been clearly taken up now in all new documents and policy documents. We now have also the Smart Specialisation strategy, a very new theory which is being tested out quite successfully. And I was actually in Galicia with Norte, and we were very pleased to see this first cross-border smart specialization strategies being signed, I think in front of about over 200, 300 people, almost 300 people. So this is an important area as well. The next area I should say is important is the revised looking at cluster policy and the revision of the importance of cluster policy. But what has been the key possibly to the Vanguard Initiative has been the political backing. And I think this is the key issue, because we have these sort of discussions, and I am amongst many friends here, I think, around the table. We have many of these types of discussions in Brussels. These are going on weekly discussions, but what they lack is the political dimension. We don't have the politicians at the table, and when we can get them, we can see we can move faster and devote more resources to the activities. So what is also the background of where we're coming from? The first point, I think there was the Industrial Renaissance communication in January has been mentioned. That's been a huge movement, I think, on looking at what the importance of industrial policy in Europe. The second point, we've had the Juncker's Commission, the new boost for jobs and growth, with many of you have mentioned 300 billion euros, a potential funding around. And also, I just checked the letter to the Commissioner. President Juncker sent the letter to the Commissioner for DG Enterprise saying Europe needs a high-performing industrial base. And your task, according to the Commissioner, was to focus on the internal market, but also to raise the profile and impact of industry to 20% of GDP by 2020. And that's a big task, because we're currently around 16%. So there is an importance that we need to stimulate investments and new technology. And one of the ways of doing that, of course, is through the Vanguard Initiative, which is very, very important. May I just come on now to a quick summary of some of the points that were already raised. And President Melasini mentioned this, that we're already starting from a very strategic position. This is not just something coming together. This is a strategic dimension. It's regions working together. And also the importance of the delivery of 3 pilot projects. And we mentioned the energy-related applications with Scotland and Basque Country, the 3D printing with Flanders and South Netherlands, and also the efficient and sustainable manufacturing of Catalonia and Lombardy, but we have mentioned the funding and synergies, and I'll come back onto that, the sort of cross-cutting group that you want to start on synergies and funding. But it was also very interesting that we had two new propositions coming through, which was the bio-based industries and the nano, which were also raised. So there are also more and more ideas on the table. So I mean, it's an interesting point whether we should go on, how quickly we should move on those areas. The idea then, I think that Leonard Svensson, I mean, it was such a long time ago, as many words have been spoken since there, but I think it was very key that he's looking at the new value chains. And I think this was very, very important, but this innovation process is linked, very place-based, it's regionally based, but it has to be linked across regions. There's no one region that can control or contain all the elements of the value chain you need, and that's very important. So we do need the work around this sort of area. He also mentioned blue growth, which I think is an interesting point, because Erin will start a blue growth working group next year. He also stressed again the importance of the political leadership, the international cooperation, and the need for regions to do a lot more work around procurement to the solutions to the challenges. He mentioned as well the smart specialization, the two key points that we've always stressed in Erin. First, look inside your region for what are your strengths, and then look outside your regions to how you can collaborate. And this is exactly, I think, the role of what the Vanguard Initiative is doing, and I think that's a very strong point of the Vanguard Initiative. He also mentioned the key role for cluster organizations, not just because they're a cluster, but for encouraging them to change. They have the capacity to change in that area. So I think that was the very clear area. And he mentioned there, again, going from words to action. This is something which I think is quite clear for the next year of the Vanguard Initiative. Those sort of notion of the global value chain was built on by Mr. Bonaretti. And of course, I mean, I think he made the interesting point that talking about the industrial renaissance, Italy is probably the place to do it. And this notion of what you need for the industrial renaissance, but he particularly made light on the need for new financial instruments and tools for the industrial sector. And I think that's quite clear for most regions, and our own experience in Erin is there's a lot of willing talk, but we do need the finance and the support to put these things into action. I think it was very interesting as well that we're talking about the global value chains that we're starting to mention more regularly. He talked about the Global Manufacturing Renaissance Alliance with the United States, and also how that would link in with the EU Industrial Renaissance Alliance here in Europe. And I think those two things, that the Vanguard should not necessarily be seen just as a European, but can move forward. And that was the point, I think, which was interesting from the EU LAC, from Mr. Guillaume, and he was making the point, and I think he made an interesting point from a negative way, because he said a lot of the issues that we've been doing, the connection between EU and Latin America, has been done on a random basis. And being done on a random basis hasn't moved it very far. I think that's sort of the rough conclusion. And so I think this is a good example of the Vanguard is not a random basis. And I think this is the key and the strength of the Vanguard Initiative, that it has got this key role, 3 pilots, potentially more, and is working together, and it is not random. So I think this was a very interesting point, but he also raised the opportunities that the Vanguard Initiative has to link up with Latin America, and also it's very pleasing to know for once that Europe is in the lead, that smart specialization is being taken up by other continents and being seen there. So we're not always at the back, sometimes we're also leading in new ideas. This brings me to the discussion. I thought was an interesting discussion, and the points that people were raising. I raised 4 areas that came up. The first area was funding. Many people raised the notion of funding. What do we do with the 300 billion euros? How do we get our hands on it, really, is one of the questions. One of the areas was the demonstration and the pilots. Somebody mentioned smart financing. Somebody mentions quality spending. We do also need, it's not just throwing money, but having a quality spend. Public-private partnerships, public-private investment, and also the role of new instruments is very, very important. The second area was partnership. We mentioned the 4 motors. There are other networks around. This is not just the only, I mean, Vanguard is connected, as we've already mentioned. Most of you are in Erin, but many people are in different networks. So partnerships within and outside is very important. The other word that came up clearly was industrial renaissance. Again, new value chains, world-class clusters, that was very, very important. And last one, it was projects. Projects, we've got the policy, the 3 pilot lines, but we do need policy delivery. We need concrete delivery of projects, whether it's 6 or 10, as Scotland have mentioned, but we do need something coming out concretely from this. So those were the key points, I think, that came from the discussion that came around the table from the regions. And so in my sort of conclusion area, I would like to say really that Vanguard is seeing itself as a new approach. It's aligning smart specialization strategies. It's looking at industrial policy in more depth. It's looking at intense interregional collaboration with political support, and it's looking also at co-investment. And so I think these are the key points. The action, there's the pilot actions, the implementation. It's very important that next year when we come back, because there will be, both in Scotland and somewhere else, another meeting, we know that. Instead of saying we will, we say we have done. So we change the tense from future to past, because this is where we can talk about actually concrete examples, and this is where it's important to where the Commission have come in of talking about models. I mean, they mentioned this key point that they could see the Vanguard Initiative as a key model of collaboration of how we can use the various things forward. And I mean, I welcome it also. I think we should welcome the support that we've had from the 3 DGs who have here, obviously, and also strong support from DG Research on that. But the key issue also, which we haven't discussed as much today, which perhaps we could talk about, is that looking at the influence of how we could influence future policy. And the Vanguard comes at a very interesting time. It comes with a new commission, it comes with a new president, it comes with a new parliament, and it comes in a new funding period. So there's a lot of opportunities on the table, some of which I can mention. First of all, we know that Interreg Europe, it will be starting its first calls 2015, and there will be these policy learning platforms. How does the Vanguard Initiative link to those? So we also know that the Smart Specialisation, we know was the last peer review, was in Galicia, but what is the next steps? And we know that the Smart Specialisation platform will work much on monitoring now, but there are still opportunities to say, well, can we not put some Vanguard Initiative activities into the Smart Specialisation platform? We have just in Erin, we've just responded to the EU 2020 midterm review as a paper, so there will be a revision of Europe 2020 strategy in 2015. Again, what role for industrial policy and Vanguard Initiative in there? We've also got, at the moment, we're working on at the Commission level all the new work programs for 2016-2017. There's still some room time. It's getting late. The concrete is setting, but there is still opportunities to look at the work programs and how the Vanguard Initiative can be there. But also then, I also think we have to look longer term, and so what we're saying of the Vanguard, and let's hope that the Vanguard will be a long-lasting, and I'm sure it will, network. In 2 years' time, or next year, we'll be starting thinking about post-2020. And so it's already time to start putting down the first policy ideas for future policy in 2020 on there. So from that, I would just like to say congratulations for everybody. I've seen a lot of the work that's gone on behind. I think I've got a pile of paper about 1 meter high of papers for this meeting. So I congratulate all the organisation of Lombardy, particularly, but also many of the people who I know quite personally in Erin who put an enormous amount of work. That's particularly, I'd mentioned Flanders, but we could mention many other regions who are working very strongly in Brussels. Your people in Brussels are making this happen on a daily basis, so I'd like to congratulate them. I see what the work they're doing, and I wish you well in your activation of all the ideas that you've put forward today, and let's hope next year we'll be able to report back on those success stories. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Grazie per l'incoraggiamento, dottor Tuff, grazie soprattutto per ciò che ha detto, e grazie soprattutto perché ci ha fatto intendere che come iniziativa Vanguard c'è spazio ancora in vari programmi che stanno uscendo, ma soprattutto quel concetto che deve essere un team, deve essere una squadra sì regionale, noi regioni stimoliamo la cooperazione interregionale, ma ci deve essere anche una buona integrazione a livello di commissione, a livello di direzioni generali, in modo tale da avere una sinergia, diciamo, in maniera positiva e propositiva per far sì che ci possa essere una ricaduta positiva in ogni singolo territorio e quindi rilanciare anche la politica industriale. Sicuramente Erin è fondamentale anche in tutto questo, in tutto ciò che è stato fatto, in ciò che sicuramente farà. Ricordiamo però che sempre lo sguardo, come dico io, deve essere sempre bidirezionale, cioè in un senso e nell'altro. Io mi permetto, prima di avviarmi rapidamente alla conclusione della mattinata, dei lavori della mattinata, visto che arrivate e do il benvenuto anche a Mrs. Drake, mi farebbe piacere se ha una sua riflessione, alcune sue considerazioni. Grazie. Mrs. Drake è della DG Enterprise e direttore per la competitività delle imprese.
Grazie signor Presidente per questa opportunità. Adesso cambio all'inglese. I'm here on behalf of my Director General, Daniel Calleja, who is Director General for DG Enterprise, the newly baptized DG Growth, as from the 1st of January. Of course, in the true spirit also of achieving more and better synergies in the Commission and the working methods, etc. I'm also here for the conference, which I think all of you will also be attending this afternoon on emerging industries, and I think it's very appropriate that we also pass on a message of support and on the Vanguard Initiative. I think my Director General and myself are quite familiar now with your objectives, with what you'd like to achieve, and I think this fits in very well with the Industrial Renaissance communication. It's consistent with its priorities, but it's also consistent with the priorities of the new cluster strategy for growth that we intend to table as of next year. Let's start with the Industrial Renaissance communication, and there it's clear that the part of the priorities of this communication endorse very clearly smart specialization, and also it promotes the creation of a platform to support its implementation. The rollout of smart specialization projects needs to be made in collaboration with firms and cluster organizations alike. But how is the Commission helping? What is it doing in order to facilitate this process? First of all, it is already aligning its SME support networks and also its cluster policies so that they can be integrated with regional smart specialization priorities. These instruments can provide themselves already a platform for the participation of SMEs in smart specialization strategies. Also, the second way how the Commission is facilitating the process already is that it has already and will continue to engage in activities relating to the mapping of value chains in order to facilitate the identification and also the emergence of collaboration, notably cross-border collaboration. There is much scope for synergies and complementarities in the regional innovation policies. I would like just to add a word about the shared vision that Smart Specialisation and the Vanguard Initiative have with the cluster strategy for growth. And we believe that clusters in general already integrate across policies. They also synergize across sectors and also across regions. And in this regard, I think there is a mirroring of the shared vision with the Vanguard Initiative. From the cluster point of view, we would be very interested to further explore the scope for closer synergies and complementarities between smart specialization and cluster policies. And the first opportunity, as you probably already know, would be the joint conference between DG Enterprise and DG Regio planned for next spring. As for the future, and in conclusion, we would like to emphasize that the Commission will continue to follow with interest the development of the Vanguard Initiative, and we will ensure that our instruments can be useful for the development of cross-regional projects in support of innovation. We know that this is a very long road, but we are hoping that the Vanguard Initiative opens a new way of working that can gradually be taken up by an increasing number of regions. Thank you very much.
Grazie per le sue riflessioni, ma soprattutto grazie anche per aver ricordato a tutti noi e ai vari colleghi dell'importante iniziativa che inizierà oggi pomeriggio e ci sarà domani sulla Emerging Industry, a New Engine for Growth, che si terrà a Palazzo Lombardia, nel nostro auditorium che è a poche centinaia di metri da qua. Qui dopo ci trasferiremo. Momento estremamente importante. Grazie. E adesso io farei partire, se la regia ce lo permette, il video e il messaggio dal sottosegretario di Stato del Consiglio dei Ministri Sandro Gozzi.
Dear Excellencies, dear guests, dear friend, I really regret that I cannot be with you in Milan today, but I got many institutional commitments here in Rome, and I couldn't take the train to share my views live with you. I regret it because your endeavor, your initiative go toward the direction which we as Italian government and as a rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union, we have identified as one of the key objectives, one of the highest priorities for this new political cycle that we want the European legislature to become. We strongly believe on digital innovation, we strongly believe on technological innovation, we strongly believe on a new innovation policy at European level. This is why we have basically started the semester with the Digital Venice, an initiative which aims to more fastly achieve that objective, which is a very important objective on which we are lagging behind the digital single market. We must identify also a new instrument at the service of our digital agenda, and we want digital innovation to be one of the pillars around which to build up our new growth policy and our new growth and inclusive development. And this is why we do believe that this investment debate that we have largely contributed to launch in Europe, and we so far as which so far has given birth to this idea of the investment plan on which rightly Jean-Claude Juncker is working to present operational proposals by the end of our semester in view of the European Council in December. Well, the biggest priority, the biggest target of this investment plan must be digital innovation, must be the digital agenda. There has been other events, and I'm very proud that in our country during our semester after Digital Venice, another important event on digital knowledge and new youth policy, new youth knowledge policy was organized in Rome, the e-skills for job, and now Milan is witnessing your very important initiative. Vanguard Initiative is a key step towards European innovation. As citizens of Italy and also of Emilia-Romagna, I'm also very proud that my region has decided to join this initiative. And it is important because, in my view, it fits in our effort of preparing the review of the EU 2020 strategy. And it is within this context, and we are working in Italy, we are working in all the formations of the Council of Ministers to prepare in the best way the review of the EU 2020 strategy that will be formally decided by the Spring Council in March of the next year, but we are doing all our effort to prepare the review of the EU 2020, and the review must turn the EU 2020 into a strategy which must be more digital, greener, and more regional. And these three dimensions, more emphasis and more policies and more funds at the service of innovation and digital innovation and innovation policy. This emphasis on a greener development, so an emphasis on a much more greener, sustainable development, notably at the local level, and on the role of the region, even more active role and more inclusive strategy toward the region in the review of the EU 2020 strategy, are certainly three elements, three directions on which we can work together and on which we need also your support to also develop a method which is much more bottom up than it has been in the past. And in this perspective, certainly some of your pilot initiatives are certainly fully consistent with our objective. I just refer to the efficient and sustainable manufacturing initiative, to the high-performance production with 3D printing, to the advanced manufacturing for energy-related applications in harsh environments. All these go toward that objective of smart, inclusive, and sustainable growth. And your Vanguard initiative and your emphasis on smart specialization, in my view, deserve our biggest attention and are one of the axes on which we can work fruitfully together in the month and the years ahead of us. Thank you very much, and have a nice working day, but also have a nice, a pleasant day in one of our best Italian cities, which is Milan.
Molto bene, grazie, grazie anche per questo videomessaggio registrato dal sottosegretario Gozzi, che ha la delega specifica verso gli affari europei, sia come in questo momento, in un contesto in cui l'Italia assume il semestre di presidenza europea, ma anche e soprattutto nelle strategie politiche di rilancio del ruolo delle regioni nei confronti dell'Europa, ci fa sempre di più sottolineare anche come l'Italia sia proprio in un'ottica, proprio nell'ottica della Vanguard Initiative. Questo è estremamente importante. Prima so che molti dei miei colleghi hanno già sottoscritto il documento, adesso andrò a sottoscriverlo anch'io come Regione Lombardia su delega del Presidente Maroni, il nostro Presidente, però mi permetto di fare alcune riflessioni e rilanciare un po' quanto ci siamo detti stamattina. Nel mio breve saluto iniziale ho citato l'importanza di questi tre progetti pilota che sono stati voluti, sono stati proposti e si stanno conducendo proprio grazie al coordinamento di alcune regioni che aderiscono proprio a Vanguard. Volevo ricordare i temi: il manifatturiero avanzato per l'energia, il primo progetto; il secondo progetto, tutto ciò che riguarda lo sviluppo del network per le stampanti tridimensionali; e infine il manifatturiero efficiente e sostenibile. Ecco, io stamattina ho fatto una proficua un colloquio, anche se pur breve ma intenso, con il mio collega ministro della Catalogna, in cui diciamo che dobbiamo cogliere come opportunità queste progettualità per poter far sì di aprirsi e soprattutto di implementare, cioè perché sono veramente strumenti. Io considero un po' questi progetti pilota veramente come dei cavalli di Troia che ci permettono di entrare in un mondo e poter aprirsi ancora e creare veramente, avere un effetto domino, cascata in senso positivo. Quindi invito i miei colleghi, i leader politici che sono qua presenti, ma soprattutto con le rispettive strutture tecniche, a lavorare, diciamo, a entrare molto di più nel contesto e far sì che questi momenti siano sempre di più momenti non solo di un confronto estremamente utile, estremamente funzionale al raggiungimento dell'obiettivo che ci siamo prefissati con queste iniziative, ma che possano diventare anche o che diano seguito a momenti molto più operativi, concreti per raggiungere dei risultati con quelle ricadute che noi tutti ci auguriamo. Quindi adesso, prima di chiudere la nostra giornata, che è stata veramente proficua e veramente vi ringrazio, abbiamo iniziato presto, adesso ci sarà poi un light lunch proprio molto rapido, per poi chi vorrà ci sarà diciamo un breve interscambio sulla bioeconomy, mi sembra, ci sono fra varie regioni rappresentanti. Io purtroppo non potrò essere presente perché ho un impegno transitorio istituzionale che mi devo assentare, ma ci sarà il mio direttore generale vicario De Crinito che sarà a disposizione per qualsiasi informazione. Vi ricordo ancora oggi pomeriggio alle 14:30, oggi pomeriggio e domani, su questo momento sulle emerging industry. Quindi vi ringrazio ancora. Adesso non so il cerimoniale che deve portare per firmarmi, c'è questo atto conclusivo della firma anche di Regione Lombardia. Tienimi la mano, proprio stringi forte. Dove devo firmare? Qua. Ok. Quindi abbiamo siglato tutti. Grazie. Bene. Adesso ci sarà una brevissima press conference che sarò affiancato come delega dalla Vanguard da Mr. Nilsson, da Mr. Philippe Muiters e da Mrs. Tapia per illustrare ai giornalisti, alla stampa, un po' la nostra iniziativa e soprattutto il documento della dichiarazione di Milano. Bene, se c'è qualche giornalista possiamo iniziare. Eccoci qua. Bene, come sapete oggi abbiamo con questa iniziativa, la Vanguard Initiative, che è diciamo un momento estremamente importante per noi regioni, soprattutto perché l'obiettivo è vogliamo unire le forze per investire nel futuro dell'Europa. E con l'occasione oggi andiamo a sottoscrivere il documento, la dichiarazione di Milano, che si fonda fondamentalmente su 6 punti. Noi andiamo a sottoscrivere e impegnandoci su 6 punti, che sono fondamentalmente andare a sostenere la creazione di reti interregionali, andiamo a facilitare l'accesso al finanziamento composito, a esplorare nuove modalità di potenziamento degli investimenti pubblici e privati, ma soprattutto lavorare sull'attuazione di ciò che per noi è fondamentale, cioè le strategie di specializzazione intelligente, per favorire questo migliore allineamento tra le regioni. Contribuire in particolare alla strategia europea dei cluster. Voi sapete quanto noi come Regione Lombardia, ma non solo, stiamo investendo sui cluster, i cluster tecnologici lombardi, e soprattutto, ultimo ma non ultimo, l'ho voluto tenere, è sviluppare l'iniziativa Vanguard come partnership, una partnership focalizzata sul valore per stimolare e sostenere un dialogo strategico. Questo è proprio l'impegno che noi oggi andiamo ad unire le forze per potenziare gli investimenti e rilanciare la crescita e l'industria in Europa. Voi sapete che l'iniziativa di Vanguard è stata proposta e lanciata dalle Fiandre nell'ambito della conferenza del Parlamento europeo dal titolo Regioni come motori della nuova crescita di specializzazioni intelligenti, proprio alla presenza del Presidente del Consiglio Van Rompuy, e da allora la Vanguard ha cresciuto la sua importanza e visibilità, ma non solo, ha stimolato la creazione proprio di questo lavoro, di questa cooperazione interregionale, la formazione di progetti pilota, di cui noi abbiamo 3 progetti pilota e si sta focalizzando sia sul manifatturiero avanzato, sia sulla stampante 3 dimensionali. E la cosa interessante che vi posso dire, e se vi può interessare, il primo progetto pilota coordinato e condotto da Scozia e Paesi Baschi riguarda il manifatturiero avanzato per l'energia. Il secondo progetto coordinato da Vlaanderen, Zuid-Nederlands e da Norte Region riguarda lo sviluppo di un progetto di network sulle stampanti tridimensionali. L'ultimo progetto è il manifatturiero efficiente e sostenibile, che è condotto da Catalogna e da Regione Lombardia. Io mi fermerei e passerei la parola, ringraziandoli proprio ai miei colleghi che partecipano alla Vanguard Initiative, a questi lavori che continueranno nel pomeriggio, vi ricordo, con dei momenti di confronto, con un convegno sulle le industrie emergenti, l'emerging industry, sia oggi pomeriggio che domani tutta la giornata. Io passerei la parola, non solo per spirito di cavalleria, ma proprio alla Mrs. Tapia, che è assessore allo sviluppo economico e della competitività dei Paesi Baschi.
Grazie. Well, as partner regions of the Vanguard Initiative, we have the commitment to smart specialization as a guiding principle for our research policies, innovation, industrial, and to support competitiveness and new growth. In a climate of persistent economic stagnation, a fresh approach to mobilize fully the entrepreneurial and innovation resources in a region is indeed and can be delivered on the basis of smart specialization strategies. We as regions claim an active role interconnecting innovative value chains and creating new competitive advantages on a global scale in the European or in Europe over the member states. The Vanguard Initiative has started piloting inter-regional networks, as the Lombardia Mr. Melazzini has told us, and the Basque Country, together with Scotland, is fully engaged in one of the pilots regarding advanced manufacturing for energy application in harsh environments. That means that it's a real project created with a working group very focused in an energy area, but in energy for harsh environments. Together with that, Basque stakeholders are working to support Catalonia and Lombardy in the pilot regarding efficient and sustainable manufacturing. And why do we have chosen those two pilots? Because the Basque Country has made, during the recent 2 years, an important effort to diagnose and discuss and review the strategic research priorities of our territory, of our country. Priorities that should be supported by identifiable strengths, such as competitive business sectors, with the ability to exploit innovations and invest in the development and different technological and scientific capabilities that should address challenges in the Basque Country and that will lead to new processes, products, and new industries. The reflection is leading the Basque Country towards a balanced strategy that combines cross-cutting priority to various sectors in which the Basque Country has a strong expertise and capacities such like advanced manufacturing and key sectorial areas such as energy, together with a commitment in a diversification strategy in a field with high-tech businesses with high growth potential, like biosciences, mainly focused in human health. Considering the long-term relevance of the cluster policy within our industrial competitive policies, the Basque Country, as the rest of the Vanguard regions, is fully committed to exploit the interregional network effect of these initiatives with the final aim of evolving our clusters to world-class clusters. As started in the European Cluster Conference declaration, the last one, the 2014 one, the most pertinent challenge for cluster policy today in Europe is to support the transformation of existing industrial value chains or the emergence of new ones for the development of cross-sectorial emerging industries, and secondly, to support the development of world-class clusters in Europe that become the engines of European competitiveness. Our SMEs have to grow. Industrial renewal and regional structural change and competitiveness are the key messages of the declaration of the clusters. And the evolution of the clusters towards world-class clusters, of course, is an important tool to support all that. The Vanguard Initiative brings together regions where there is an important political will to play an active role in the renaissance of industry. Regions that are convinced, we are very convinced of that an effective implementation of the European innovation and industrial policy for new growth needs to build on regional resources and potentials. And we, the Vanguard regions, believe that the interlinking of our regions and clusters into new innovation cross-driven European value chains could be the key to articulate competitive positions. The Vanguard Initiative proposes new ways to mobilize and align resources on the basis of smart specialization strategies. Partner regions are committed to the development of interregional networks for establishing new interconnected European and global value chains, in accordance with our respective smart specialization strategies, of course. New European strategic cluster partnerships could become the instrument for the effective implementation of these networks. But they have to be supported by the European level, by a mixed top-down and bottom-up approach. We, the Vanguard regions, invite the European Commission to develop financing instruments to leverage these cluster-based initiatives that complement our regional efforts. Special instruments going ahead from the existing ones have to be implemented. Vanguard Initiative is a very innovative one that cannot be nor classified, neither financed by the existing instruments. So, So with the new president, the new commission, and the new parliament working, we think that this is the moment to implement new and adapted financial instruments to make the cluster policy and the smart specialization strategy work both for our regional policies and for the European policies. Thank you very much.
Grazie a Assessore Tapia. Adesso passerei la parola a Mr. Nilsson, che è il Presidente della Regione Dalarna in Svezia. Prego, President.
Well, as the President of the region of Dalarna, I'm proud that we just a few months ago put forward our application to the Vanguard Initiative. The initiative has truly found a white spot on the map where the region's possibilities to interact and co-develop can be explored. The region of Dalarna has a population of 280,000 inhabitants, and every fourth young people are unemployed. So it's very important that that we can work with this instrument and make progress. It is of great importance that the Commission and the Council make use of and keep up with the pace of and the engagement that the regions now are showing through Vanguard. Funds like Horizon 2020 and CUSME need to be well connected with the Council policies for a renaissance of industry in Europe. We as a region are putting a lot of faith in the newly elected Commission to work together with us in order to create a difference. The region of Dalarna welcomes the Milan Declaration and hope that we, as well as the Commission and the Council, can answer to our common challenges by working in the spirit and with the strategy and the actions put forward in the declaration. Thank you.
Grazie President. Ora la parola al mio collega Mr. Muitiers, che è l'assessore al lavoro, all'economia, all'innovazione e sport della Regione delle Fiandre.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will be very short. I only want to say why we signed a new declaration today and what we want to achieve with this instrument. I think that we all, as leaders of our respective regions, are convinced that we can all improve our economic performance by collaboration. I think all the speakers before me said the same thing. But for me, it's also important that collaboration is not a vague and philosophical concept, that it is something really what is happening on the field, and that is possible if we work in the so-called smart specialization. I think the pilot projects are very important to the future, and that everybody who is working in this pilot project should make them really happen in the field. Flanders is ready to play the leading role in these concrete actions, such as co-leading the construction of the European network of demonstrators of the 3D printing solutions together with Southern Netherlands. If a specific technology domain is important for the future, we as regions can do two things. We can all on ourselves decide that we will use all our available national and European funding to do exactly the same thing 20 times again. Or we can try to find complementary actions and thus help our industries in building an intelligent value chain. It is clear that the latter is the better approach. In the European context, this also means that the European policy making should truly involve those regional governments that are already performing well. And I think my colleague Tapia is right when she says that that we also need a new financial instrument to support this new way of working. Thank you.
Grazie a lei. Grazie. Prima di passare a delle domande, se ce ne sono, volevo ricordare un attimino e sottolineare ciò che ha detto anche Assessore Tapia rispetto a un momento in cui ci troviamo in una ristrettezza di risorse, e il fatto che il Presidente Juncker abbia parlato di un rilancio estremamente importante per rilanciare proprio innovazione e sviluppo, quindi rilanciare la politica industriale di 300 miliardi di euro, questo ci deve far pensare come iniziative come la Vanguard, che cerca di ottimizzare, essere da facilitatori, da facilitatrici le regioni nel contesto di imprese, attraendo e andando investimenti sia pubblici ma anche privati con l'utilizzo dei fondi europei mirati sicuramente in particolare a ciò che è tutta la strategia di Horizon 2020, ci deve far capire come noi regioni noi intendiamo contribuire con delle proposte concrete e di investimento individuate sia dalle industrie che dai nostri cluster, che ognuno di noi, Regione Lombardia per la sua, Paesi Baschi, eccetera, le Fiandre, lo faranno con propri fondi. Questo è importante, questa sinergia e soprattutto con nuove modalità anche di finanziamento che noi con la dichiarazione proprio di Milano nel secondo punto, che è estremamente importante, ve lo voglio ricordare, facilitare l'accesso al finanziamento composito e soprattutto le nuove modalità di potenziamento degli investimenti pubblici e privati, sia attraverso la BEI che il Fondo europeo, sia anche attraverso i privati. Quindi se ci sono domande adesso, prego. Se non ci sono domande, perché siamo stati relativamente chiari o poco chiari nel contempo, invito i miei colleghi e voi, se volete, adesso faremo con tutti gli altri partecipanti alla Vanguard Initiative, faremo una fotografia davanti al palazzo, tanto oggi il tempo ce lo permette, quindi grazie.